This is a video I saw a couple of months back, or actually probably more like a month ago. And I put it on the back burner to probably chat about and respond to, because I do think it's an interesting subject matter to chat about. I think it leaves a lot of people a little more frustrated than they should be. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to try to quell people's immediate anger at the subject matter, as well as, respond to this woman like I usually do. So, that being said, she will take us away.
Hi, my name is Dr. Lindsay Doe, and this is Sexplanations. Recently, I went to NerdCon Nerdfighteria, and on the first day sat down with Lacey Green and Matthew Gatos to do a Q&A about sex. Someone from the audience asked if having partner preferences for a certain racialized group is a form of discrimination, as in, if I will only date Mexicans, is that racist?
And I believe here we have stumbled across our first problem. She uses the words discrimination and racism as if they're interchangeable, but they're actually not. Some people might think I'm arguing semantics, but no, it's not semantics. The two words don't mean the same. Discrimination is actively separating people based on whatever criteria you want, or treating someone differently based on whatever criteria is there. Racism, on the other hand, is the ideology that one race is superior, or in turn one race is inferior to another. So it's true, when you're racist, you are discriminating against other people, yes, but you can discriminate against other people for a number of things that have nothing to do with race. So they are closely related, or at least they can be, but they're not interchangeable. They're not the same thing. So, to answer the woman's question, she'll probably never watch this video, but to answer her question, if she had a preference for only dating Mexican people, is that racist? Well, I would say no. Unless, of course, you had the caveat that the only reason you date Mexican people is because you think they're superior. Well, then that would be, racist.
Yes. Racism is a belief that all members of a racialized group are the same in some way that's inferior or superior to other racialized groups. So,
she actually got the definition right.
if you believe that all people of one group are less attractive, less worthy, less whatever your dating or sexual expectations, then that's racist.
Well, interestingly enough, it can be, but not necessarily so. Not being attracted to someone doesn't necessarily mean that you think that they're inferior. It could be as simple as you just don't like the way their facial features are, or the way their skin color is. It doesn't mean that you think that they're less than anyone, it just means that you personally don't like it. In the same way that you can personally not like the taste of strawberries, but that doesn't mean that you actively think strawberries are worse than oranges in any way. It just means that you personally just don't like the texture or the taste on your mouth. And that's okay. However, again, if you are implying that you think that one race is inferior, which would be the definition of the word racist, then yeah. But for the most part, most people who don't date outside of the races aren't doing so out of racist or malicious intention. It's usually just more a personal preference.
As it turns out, most of us are. Matchmaker Emma Tessler, who has worked with thousands to find love, is very aware of people's racial preferences, and she says, no one likes being called racist, but it's hard for her to find another word to refer to people making negative assessments of large groups of individuals that they've never met based solely on the color of their skin.
And I can understand why the fallback word will indeed be racist, but I think the more correct word would be prejudice. Sure, if you have a bunch of negative opinions about people and that's why you don't want to date someone of a particular race, I would say that, well, you're wrong, because it's not even reasonable to believe that everyone is any particular way everywhere, which is a point that I've made numerous times on my channel, and I'll probably have to keep making for some people. Yeah, I could see why, again, she'd fall back on the term racist, but that's mostly because she just doesn't have a better word to use. There's not really a better noun, or a noun that specifically indicates what she was describing. So she just put racist. But no, it's not necessarily racism. Again, you have to come to the conclusion, you have to assume that the reasons behind these people not wanting to date a particular race is because they think it's inferior. And there's no real way to know that unless the person explicitly says it, so, yeah, you're just using racist for lack of a better word, but it's way too mostly charged and has way too much weight to do that.
Continues, this is about social forces shaping our preferences, and we will never progress without acknowledging that fact. For the record, 55% of Emma's clients identify as white, and 90% of her clients have racial preferences, 89.9% of them for white partners.
Now, I don't actually know the amount of people that were in her study, but I do find it very interesting that even non-white people do indeed prefer white people. It's kind of funny to me, actually. Interesting and funny. I'll roll into one. I wonder why that is.
Question I'm concerned with is why. The human mind works to find shortcuts so we don't have to think so hard. You see fire or sharp teeth or a gaping hole in the ground, and it's these shortcuts based on experiences or lessons passed down that go, beware, careful, you probably want to go around the hole. Similarly, the smell of cinnamon or the sound of snoring might indicate that things are calm. Food is being made, someone nearby is resting. They're shortcuts. Where they become harmful is when we only rely on them and stop thinking complexly. Take, for example, judging people. Who are the 5 sexiest people you can think of?
Let me think. You got Brittany Renner, put on there. Laura Dore, she's a pinup model. I think it's probably one of the sexiest women I've ever seen in my life. Mal Malloy definitely makes it on that list. Okay, I'll put Kim Kardashian on there. Not really because of her face. I think Kim Kardashian kind of has an alright okay face, but it's Kim Kardashian from the neck down. It's what puts her on top 5 list. And then number 5. I think number 5 would have to go to Ariel. Ariel was this girl I knew back in college. She's tall, sexy black lady. Man. Ariel. Yeah, definitely. I'm putting her on my list.
They're probably celebrities. What happens when we search online for sexiest people? They're mostly white celebrities.
I googled just, to double check, and yeah, there are a bunch of white people on here. What's sad even still is, I don't even think most of these people are even sexy. So, I think Google's wrong. Google is wrong. It's not really showing me the sexiest people. It's just showing me, oh, Sofia Vergara is on here. Would you consider her to be white? I don't know. I don't get that whole, European Latin thing. I really don't. I'm ignorant there.
This is because Hollywood tells the stories of white attractive people in multidimensional roles, and other racialized groups, not so much.
Well, I mean, if you argue that in most movies, that certainly does seem to be the casting of the romantic partners. Yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, however, to say that it isn't a thing at all isn't entirely true. It wouldn't really be true at all. I mean, there's this one movie that me and my dad saw a couple years ago called About Last Night, I think it was called. I think that's what it was called. I could be wrong. I'll double check it in a break. But yeah, it was a story about these 2 black people, trying to have a relationship. I think Kevin Hart was in there too. These 2 black people, trying to make their relationship work. So I mean, it's a thing. It happens. However, if you saw, I don't think I could deny that the vast majority of Hollywood actors and actresses, in the limelight are white people. Yeah, that's true. But even then, I still have to say that, considering the fact that people are individuals and people can think for themselves, I don't think it's enough to say that people have been programmed simply by seeing a bunch of white people to only believe that white people can be attractive. I mean, consider the 5 people I named on my list. I mean, only 2 of them could be considered white people. I mean, the other 3, well, Brittany Renner's mixed, and Laura Dore is mixed as well, and then Ariel is just a beautiful black woman. So I mean, you're only influenced so much when it comes to what you believe is sexy or not sexy. Or maybe I'm just the quintessential man that's just attracted to women in general. That could be it.
Getting better, but ultimately shows and films foster the idea that white is good-looking, intelligent, successful, and basically the default. So the shortcut in our brains goes white, good, white, standard.
Well, I can understand how you could come to that conclusion, except there's only a couple of problems. One, you have to assume that the ladies whose study you've shown us, sample size is representative enough of a bunch of people to really come to that conclusion. And since I don't have a number on how many people she sampled, and I don't like statistics, well, any fucking way, I'm just not really going to take it wholesale and believe honestly that the vast majority of people truly and genuinely think that white is right, or white is good, and white is the standard. I would imagine that since there's a majority of white people in America, or a majority of white people, I think even in Canada, that's exactly what they would believe, but that's mostly because I think they're more exposed to that, and they themselves are probably white. But I honestly think that if you probably chatted with a lot of people of different races, they probably would date and prefer people of their own race. And I don't really think it's so much that they think these people are attractive or more superior, though they probably do think they're more attractive. I think it's more of a familiarity thing, and even more of an accessibility thing as well. I mean, even if you really, really are attracted to women from Latin America, unless you fly over there or she flies to you, well, that's it. You just gonna have to, masturbate to her on the internet.
Similarly, because of media depictions and our affinity for these shortcuts, black becomes struggle, Asian, nerdy, Latinx, macho, Muslim, foreign, and so on.
Well, I mean, again, these are assumptions, and perhaps the people who haven't been exposed to these individuals, certainly, However, I mean, if you are a black person and you meet other black people, I mean, the shortcut might really be for black women angry, and if you experience a lot of white women, your shortcut might be passive aggressive. But if you experience a lot of Latin women, I think actually your shortcut might be crazy as fuck. Was that racist? I think that was a little racist. I apologize for that.
Every nuance of voice, eye shape, skin tone, lip movement, and dress are associated with a snap judgment.
I think one of the most interesting things about your video is how it's not wrong in theory, but it seems to be more wrong in practice. I mean, in theory, yeah, sure, those associations make perfect sense, that someone who's been exposed to negative imagery of black people, someone who's only been exposed to imagery of Asian people being nerdy and really good at math, and someone seeing that Latino people are macho, although I don't really get that impression from Latino women, but I digress. Sure, I mean, again, in theory, that does stand to reason. I mean, certainly if you are of the mindset that people only rely on these shortcuts to make their decisions on people. However, most people don't really think like that. I mean, it's true you have racism. Racism is a thing. I'm not saying that it isn't. I've given you the definition numerous times. However, are most people this prejudiced, especially in America and especially in the South? No, not really. At least not from my experience. It seems people just kind of like who they like.
One of the things Skylar Nicole brought up,
that name sounds very familiar,
when we talked about her work in the porn industry is,
oh, well, I just told on myself, huh?
that lower demand for black performers means lower pay. Even though she's doing the same kind and amount of work as her colleagues, the higher level of melanin in her skin means she makes less money.
One thing that I can't deny is that this does seem to be an honest problem with porn actresses, which is something I cannot truly understand completely. I really don't get why, you know, white people, and it is a problem with white people, that's just the facts, but it does seem that white men honestly do genuinely like to see other white men have sex with women. When in all actuality, I mean, in my point of view, I mean, porn is fucking porn. Like, I mean, it's a woman having sex. I don't know. They really like it. I don't really know why, but I guess it's easier for them to insert themselves if they see another white penis, but I never even focused on the penis, so I guess that's really maybe that's the conundrum I'm having. I don't know.
Quote anti-racism activist Jane Elliott, pigmentation should have nothing to do with how you treat another person.
Yeah, and I would mostly agree with that. And I mean completely. I don't really think you should treat people based on their skin tone. There's not really enough information to really understand if they're a good or bad person.
I would add, or whether or not you get off to them.
And that is not really something that I can entirely co-sign with. Not because I don't agree with it in principle. I mean, I honestly think, truly and genuinely, if you meet a nice person, and they have darker skin, or they have really light skin, or they're just, you know, pasty, pale-looking mothersucker, if the person's nice, and they want to have a family, and they treat you well, and they have some degree of intelligence, I mean, they don't have to be Einstein, but, you know, they have some degree of common sense and intelligence, I think that whether it's a short, pale Irish woman or a tall, gigantic, black Nubian princess, I think that if the person is great, you should date them. However, not everyone shares that opinion that I have. I mean, I just like women in general. I mean, because a vagina is a vagina to me. I mean, like, it's really more who she is that I'm more attracted to. But, again, everyone's not me. And I don't think it's racist to have a specific preference of wanting to date someone who's, one, the same race that you are, or, you know, if you like someone of different features. And I think that's probably one of the most interesting things. I mean, I really like the way, you know, Mexican women or Latino Cuban women, I really like the way their face looks, like, literally, like, I like their facial features. And that doesn't mean that I wouldn't date someone that's white, or it doesn't mean I wouldn't date a black woman. I would certainly date a black woman. It's really more black women won't date me, but that's another video for another time. The basic point is, viewer, I mean, having racial preferences is not racist. If you really just like the way someone's face looks, then I think you just really like the way someone's face looks. It doesn't mean necessarily that you wouldn't date someone, even if you have a preference. I mean, even the word preference itself means that you would highly prefer or you rather would have, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you would never date someone of a different race. And if you use the term preference to mean that you would not never date anyone that isn't the same race, then that's not a preference. That's a requirement. It's a racial requirement. You're not preferring anything. You wouldn't date anything else. So that technically wouldn't even be the correct word to use there when describing this phenomenon anyway.
Here's the science. Research participants who explicitly expressed positive attitudes toward white and black people were tested on their implicit attitudes, what they think subconsciously about race. They were asked to quickly categorize words that popped up on a screen as negative or positive after an image of a black person or white person's face was shown. Like this: happy, positive; fear, negative; anger, negative; peace, positive, and so on. The results? When the images were of black faces, participants categorized negative words faster and positive words slower. And when the images were of white faces, the opposite happened.
Well, you didn't really show us with non-white. I mean, you just showed us with black. But I mean, would Asian people be considered white? Like, no one calls Asian people white, but like, a lot of them are really pale. Like Japanese people, they're pretty pale. But no one calls them white, they call them Japanese. Like, what the fuck is up with that shit? It's really confusing. I don't really get this whole white thing. Nah, I'm messing with you. I get it. And sure, the study does sound interesting, at the very least. And I would like to see, more information about it. However, I still don't think it's enough of a conclusion, or it's enough information to come to the conclusion that lots of people would indeed, or do indeed think there's a bunch of negative things about being black. Actually, no, I think a lot of people certainly do feel that way. I just don't think that's the case with racial dating preferences, though.
What this shows is that knowingly or not, it is easy to associate good with white and not good with non-white. Institutional racism is at work here. That means racism established in our history, socially pervasive and methodically executed by our policymakers, corporations, schools, law enforcement, etc.
Yeah, but this is what I really don't like about your video. I mean, you're calling it racism, but you haven't really shown us any concrete information or any concrete discernible detail that shows us specifically that these people think less of different races. It could be entirely possible that these people are quicker to understand the different facial expressions of different white people because they've been around a lot of white people, and they're slower to get it from black people because they don't spend a lot of time with black people. I mean, I don't even know who these people were who were conducting this experiment and what you just described to us in the last clip. The fact is, I mean, there's not enough information to come to the conclusion that these people are racist. We just know that they prefer to date someone of another or their same race, or perhaps even another race.
What do we do? Well, if you don't want to be racist sexually or otherwise, you start by acknowledging that you are. Make a list of 10 countries and next to each one, write a prejudice that you or your society has about people from there, why you wouldn't date them. Then, one by one, find evidence to negate the snap judgment or shortcut in your mind and make a new pathway. This will hopefully help with racist thinking. To address racist behaviors, swipe right on Tinder profiles if the person's from a racialized group you'd usually pass up. Don't set racial restrictions on your dating profiles, and go on dates with all the people and listen. Attraction is in part influenced by proximity, how close we are in physical space to others, and mere exposure effect, which is how often we come in contact with them. So by increasing the diversity of your interactions with people, you're letting attraction become inclusive. You're reconditioning that smart brain of yours to challenge judgments and stereotypes and go in a new and non-racist direction toward love and sex.
You know, the interesting thing is, for someone who might actually be somewhat racist, I actually don't disagree with her here that experiencing new people and talking to different people that challenge you is good for you. However, I mean, again, I think this is the underlying theme of her video. I mean, in terms of theory, I really don't find much of what she's saying to be wrong. I just kind of find the practical application of it to be, well, not wholly accurate to reality. You know, I think she's using the word racist way too lightly or way too liberally, and applying it to people that it probably really doesn't apply to. However, in terms of actually meeting new people and talking to people of different races and learning about their cultures, I do think that would be an interesting and even fun thing, and you know, you might find someone you like doing that. So again, in theory, no, I can't disagree.
You're staying curious. My hope is that this episode serves to spark your curiosity about racism, sexually and otherwise, and that you both continue to ask questions and learn.
Now in your video there, I mean, at the end she just gives us links and whatnot, but I think you guys can just go to the original video and find that out. So I guess the final thought is, one, this woman is pretty far from being stupid. I mean, she's not dumb at all, and I've watched several of her other videos. I don't think this woman is unintelligent. I just don't think she's accurate, and I think she's wrong. I don't think that having a preference for one race or the other is racist, because again, in terms of a preference doesn't necessarily mean that you would never date someone of a different race. What it means is you'd be more likely, or you would rather date someone of a particular racial preference. That's what it means. However, if you are of the mind that you would never date someone that isn't white, then that's not a fucking preference. That is a sexual requirement. You will only date white people, white men only. That's not a preference. That's a requirement. It's not something bending or yielding on. As far as sexual discrimination goes, that's a thing that humans do all the time. If you find yourself not being attracted to a fat person, that's discrimination. If you find yourself not attracted to a transgender person, that's discrimination. The point is, discrimination is not unto itself a bad thing, and a lot of people need to get out of the mindset that automatically believing discrimination is unto itself bad and negative. It can be, and a lot of the times it is, because people discriminate on really stupid shit, like which side of the fucking road you grew up on. However, discriminating against people who are negative, discriminating against people who treat you badly, again, that's all discrimination, and it's actually pretty healthy. The trick is you have to understand who you're going to separate yourself from, and why you're separating yourself from them. It's not really discrimination itself that is the problem here. So hopefully with that video, man, fuck! I got it wrong. I'm going to do it all over again. So that being said, man, I actually hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, man, go ahead and click the like button. Now shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below, and as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.